Hey everyone, welcome to the World New Mind web series where we talk about mental health and help you understand what's going on mentally and physically to help you reintroduce yourself into a new world with a new mind. Today, I'm so excited. We have a special guest, Cynthia Maselli, joining us. Cynthia is also the co-founder of Drew's Movement. It would not run without her. I'm so excited. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be doing this with you today.
Yes, and so it's an honor because Cynthia, like I said, the Drew's Movement would not be what it is without the summit, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a background. So Cynthia Maselli, she is a brand business strategist with more than 10 years of experience. Her career background includes everything from event management to marketing to consulting for small businesses, nonprofits such as ours, and an international corporation. She created and actually launched a live workshop, Truth Behind the Mirror, for teen girls based on self-esteem, media, influencers, and true beauty at a foster girls center, which I love. She has a bachelor's degree in communication with a minor in psychology, along with a master's degree in business management, and she currently serves as an advisor to several nonprofits and is passionate about literally mentoring and encouraging women. So I love this about her. She has a husband and a very energetic, spunky kid who I love so much. So you can visit her at cynthiamaselli.com, but welcome, Cynthia. I'm so excited for today's topic. I think it's great that we're mixing it up a little bit today. But yeah, so today's topic is about the new world opening up, right? We're seeing everything changing, places are opening, and I think it's really important that we talk about how everyone's feeling, because I know it's a very mixed feeling. We have people who are feeling anxious and not liking it and pressured to go out into the world that they're not ready yet. And then we're seeing other people who are just going out and exploring and being the first guinea pigs to kind of experience this new world. So what is your take on this?
Well, I think the most important thing is that we all just respect one another in how this whole pandemic has affected every one of us. I mean, there are people that have lost loved ones after this or in the midst of this, or I know someone who recently just lost a loved one this last week. There are people who have lost their jobs. There are people who have been truly fearful for their life because of just health conditions that they have been, suffering from. And then we have people who, may just be working from home and have been healthy and their family's healthy, and they really haven't, had any negative, impact in a bigger way, like losing a job or losing someone. And so we all are coming from different places as we all emerge into this world again and try to get back to normal, which is going to take some time. But I think that really the number one thing is we have to take care of ourselves, and then we have to take care of each other. And what that looks like is going to be different for every one of us, but especially with just treating each other kindly and just knowing that maybe you haven't been impacted as much as somebody else, but it doesn't make one better or worse. It just means that for one another, and know that Some people are going to be more sensitive. Other people are just ready, like you said, to just go right out into the world and do all the things. And there's not a right or wrong way per se, unless, of course, we're putting somebody else's life at risk, or we're just, bullying them, which is never a good idea.
Well, I think it's one of the topics that we want to discuss is like how media is affecting this, right? I think it's really important to realize that, excuse me, from the beginning, we were blasted with fear. Don't go out, stay home, don't get near anyone. This is super contagious. We were hearing all this fear instilled in us. And so everybody, after a little bit, it took people time to really join into quarantine. But then, the last month or so, everybody literally has quarantined. I feel like it was across the board, and now you're seeing an influx in the sense that the media is now telling us it's not that bad. States are opening up. Arizona's fully open. And for me, at least, it caused a lot of anxiety because you're still, for some people, it's like you said, for me, at least, I'm high risk. So I can't just jump in. And I think that what we're feeling and the anxiety comes from all this fear that we had. And now you're hearing something completely different on the news, which is why I think it's more important that everybody does their own homework. Guys, if you're listening, do your own homework. Like, there's so many different outlets of media that you don't know what to believe anymore. For me, just tell me what I should do and what I should not do and leave it at that. There's a lot of political behind this. There's a lot of things that are biased opinions. You're hearing one news outlet say one thing, another one say another. This kills you, this doesn't. Okay, I think that that's a lot of the anxiety and where the bullying is coming from. Because you see people breaking quarantine and you're like, oh my gosh, how dare you? And it's just, I think there's a science, but I think that, we talk about this a lot, you and I, it's careful what you put out there. People are already scared. Don't repost a story unless you know the story is true and accurate. I think people are so quick to be like, I'm going to repost that. Don't even open or read the whole dang article.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, and the thing is that the media is just doing their job, unfortunately, for most of us that don't like it, because, their job is to get attention. I think before this pandemic, it almost feels like the media might have been a little boring, unless they picked up a story that was of some type of interest that would captivate people's attentions. And right now, there's just constantly something happening. Is it a coincidence that it's an election year and then this pandemic happens? I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know. I haven't done research on that. But what I do know is that there's so many opinions out there, and there's even so much fake news. And there's so many, things that you can think is true, like you were saying, and it's not necessarily true, or it's a part of the story that we don't know the full story to.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, guys, careful what you put out there. Like, I stopped watching the news because I'm so sick of the politics. I'm like, just tell me what to do. Tell me, do I stay indoors? Do I need to go? Like, I think that there's a lot of conflict with what happened to with the mask. You shouldn't be wearing your mask when you're by yourself in a car. You should only be wearing your mask when you're in high volumes of people in an enclosed space, for instance, the grocery store. I think this is very important for people to understand because, from my opinion and from what I've read, when you're killing all these germs off your hands and you're breathing in your own germs and your own carbon monoxide, and it's actually hurting you because we're quarantining with ourselves and with our families. And then we're going to step out into the world, rush out when restaurants are open, rush back out. And now you don't have a defense mechanism for yourself. You've been washing your germs that you need to be around people. Like when you're a kid, you go do things. They put you out in the world so that you build a defense mechanism for germs. And now we're taking that, we're stripping ourselves of germs, breathing in our own germs, and then you're going to reintroduce yourself into a world. And my fear, and I think a lot of doctors' fears, is that not only is it COVID that you should be worried about, you should be worried about colds, flus, all this stuff. There's not going to be just a high volume of a relapse of COVID. I think we need to pay attention to the fact that you can than you could before because you're stripping yourself of that. And I think that that's really important if you do choose to go out into the world and be one of the guinea pigs to sit at a restaurant, be mindful of that. Maybe stop washing your hands as much. Like maybe try to build your self-defense, but it's just so confusing, I feel like, right now because doctors are starting to realize that the course of treatment is not the correct course of treatment, and we're losing our identity a little bit. So it's just, I can see where all the anxiety is coming from.
Yeah, no, and I think, what I've been trying to do is listen to what doctors are saying. nurses are saying. Like,
Let's
I
hit on
want,
that as a channel of, media. Like, go ahead and hit on that.
exactly. Yeah. So I want to listen to the people that are on the front lines. What does COVID look like in real life? And I know it's different for everyone. But I want to hear from the people that are in the front lines. And I know that we all don't have access to that kind of information, but just kind of like what you were saying, like we have to be careful about who we're listening to, what we're watching, what we're focusing on. And, I think one of the big things is that we need to, as we emerge, again, have respect for one another, and what may be comfortable or uncomfortable for you may be the opposite for me. So let's not judge, let's not bully, let's respect how this may have had a different impact on all of us. And then, pay attention to where you're getting your information from. Really try not to get on the bandwagon anytime you see a post on Instagram, even if it's from a well-known influencer, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Like, do your research. And I'm not saying like dig your head into the sand and just be like, I don't hear anything, I don't want to know anything, because that's not realistic. We need to be educated and informed, but there's a proper way to do that. And so I think there's only so much you should take of the news, right? Just enough to know a little bit about what's going on. But then also be alert when you start to hear that there's this fear tactic being implemented. I mean, because let's be real, the news has a strategy for the way they're going to present information. That's a fact. And
against each other, of course, they're going to make one more fearful than like I think that they're just so. I think that we really need to like focus on that. Like, they're competing against each other. So I think that we need to take that in mind. Like, whoever has the more fear to instill is the one that's getting more viewers, because you're just like, oh my gosh, like I need to know this. Whereas if you're getting your information from people from the front, like for instance, guys, if you're having anxiety from states opening, let me just give you a little taste of from what we've been hearing, because my parents live in Arizona. We have an insider that works in the hospital who's a family friend of ours. And what she's saying compared to like people are saying about open states are very different. She's saying, I don't care if you break your leg, don't you dare come to this hospital. We're so high in COVID. We have young people in here who are suffering, who didn't have underlining. They have beds full. But of course, mayors of little towns like that, small towns, are not going to try to instill fear. They're not telling you that. But every day our numbers are climbing. There was like 90 new cases yesterday. And so I think that just because you see this state's opening, restaurants are open, don't just flood yourself or fear or feel like you have to be anxious and get out there like everyone else. I think do your own research, like you said, get your information from a frontliner, actually know what's going on, because the club was open in Scottsdale on Friday. And I literally cringed when I saw this, because they didn't have protocols in place. They were not wearing masks. It's a hot environment. You're in a room filled with like smoke and little effects that carry that stuff in the air. And there was packed to the rim. And these young people, there was even all sorts of ages, let's just be clear, but didn't care. And you're seeing that on social media. They're like so proud of it, but you have no idea in that room who has COVID, who doesn't, who's asymptomatic. Now they're going to flood back home to LA or whatever state they came from and reinfect everyone. So I think it's just really doing what's best for you. Don't feel the pressure to go out into the world just because everybody else is doing it. I've been speaking of, doing your homework. I think it's important that we read the articles of the people who are taking the time to give you real information versus listening to the media that's trying to scare you or make it about politics. Do your homework, because there's people who specifically do this for a living. There's people who research this stuff. Listen to them. If a frontliner is saying, don't do it, I don't know, I might listen to her,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we just have to use wisdom. There's so much information. There's so much like knowledge, but not enough wisdom. And so what I mean by that is that you can have all these facts, but what is best for you? Like you are going to be a different situation than I am, right? Because you're at high risk, I'm not. But even still, personally, I don't want to just throw myself out there to see what happens, because, even for a flu, I'm cautious, right? And I'm not high risk. You get impacted differently from a flu than I do, but nevertheless, I don't like getting the flu if I don't need to.
Right.
And so that's one of the things is like, as we emerge, why don't we just take precautions just like we would during, or we should during cold and flu season? And we already know that there's astronomical numbers every year for deaths from the cold and flu. And so if we just move about our world differently and wisely, what's the best decision to be mindful for ourselves, but then also for others around us? Because, you know, I mean, we've been quarantining, but I don't want to possibly be a carrier and I'm not aware of it and give it to my parents or my grandmother, right? So, you know, there was a bit of that, like, oh man, you know, I want to go see them and they haven't been seeing anyone else, but do I want to take that risk? Do I want to take that chance? And there's a difference between being fearful versus being wise about it.
Logical.
Logical. Yeah. And you've explained that. It's like, you got to put logic to things. And sometimes it's just not worth the risk.
I think there's a bigger picture here. You know, why, if we've been quarantining for 4 months, okay, a lot of us have done it before, like I started way before everyone else. Why, the bigger picture is that was to calm the contagiousness of it, to make sure that there wasn't a lot of people rushing to the hospital, to break it down slowly. And then all of a sudden, the bigger picture I think people need to realize is one night of happiness, of going out or like being with your friends in a room full of 30 people or a club or restaurant is not really the big picture, because what happens after that is important. Is one night really worth what's going to happen after? Because you're right, maybe you will survive this. Flus do not even give me the flu, right? Like you said, I'm different. But do you really want to be sick for 2 weeks and then wonder? I mean, we already wasted I hate to say wasted, but we've already been in quarantine, wasted 6 months of our lives right now. So to me, we don't want this to start all over again. We don't want to have 6 more months of quarantine. Like the bigger picture as a world, as a community, we really should look at it that way. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth stressing out over? State, what's another week? What's another month? We've already been doing it. Like, what's another month? I know this weekend, tons of people throwing parties. I don't blame them. Now, I think there's a science to this. I think that if your group of friends and you have honestly been quarantining, and when I say honestly quarantining, I feel like this is where trust is a big problem right now. I see it all the time on Instagram. I've been quarantined for 3 months, but I see you with different people every single day. That's not quarantining, because those people were with other people and those people were other people. If they were comfortable being with you, they were comfortable being with other people. That is not quarantining. But if my group of friends have all been respectfully quarantined, I don't see a problem with all of us having dinner together at one of our houses, because we really haven't been around other people. And I think it's healthy to do that. Mm-hmm. But then again, you have to really be honest with the people around you. Have you really been quarantined? And that's a big problem right now.
Yeah. And I think one of the main things is that I feel like people are having a little more anxiety as we are being let out, is because there's this pressure that they're feeling or they're facing from others. And, you know, they're trying to be like, you know, let's just go out and have dinner. They're opening up the restaurant and, you know, let's go do this, let's go do that. But it's okay if you're not okay with doing that yet. You know, move at your own pace. There's no pressure, there's no expectation. And, you know, granted, there might be some jobs that are going to start to, you know, have people go back to the workplace, whatever that may be. With that aside, though, for the majority of other life, you know, day-to-day activities, do what's best for you, you know, and it's okay to not push yourself right back out there. I mean, we've all experienced, in a way, this traumatic experience together where, you know, our life seemed to be normal. And then suddenly overnight, it seemed like, you know, we were all just told to be in our homes. And so that was an adjustment. And then being in our homes was an adjustment. And then now being told, okay, now you can go out again, that's going to be an adjustment.
Of course. And you're feeling this pressure, like being back in LA. I'm back for 2 days. And I'm the most anxious, crazy person ever right now, because you feel the pressure of everyone asking you to go places. There's a lot of breaking quarantine. There's parties. And it's just like, it's overwhelming. And you have to kind of just remind yourself, what are your needs? What do you need? I know that I'm high risk. It's just the name of the game. Like, I'm high risk. And I think it's important that people really understand what that means. You guys, I shouldn't have to wear a name tag that says, but I'm about to, because it's getting bad, that says, hi, my name is, I have lupus, stay away from me and take me serious. But I shouldn't have to disclose my personal information. But for instance, I'll give you an example. I went to Rite Aid yesterday. and I have the little sandwich clubs, like the little white clear ones that they use in cafeterias. And I wore them because I'm afraid of touching, but I also know the rule of glitter. Like there's a rule of glitter. If you play with glitter and you're trying not to spread the glitter, how do you do it? So I know not to touch my phone when I have gloves on. I know to not, some people think just because you're wearing gloves, you can touch things. No, you can't. Your gloves are to be only for the things you're touching. But I had my medical mask and I had my gloves on, and people were looking at me like, oh, she's that person. Oh, she's taking this way too serious. Like judging me because I was wearing gloves. But the thing is, why do I have to tell you I have lupus? The flu takes me out. The flu will put me out for a month. Like I am severely affected because I have a low immunity and have to stay that way. So for me, wearing gloves is very important. Wearing a mask at all times when I'm in public is important, but the judgment that comes with that is just ridiculous. I shouldn't have to disclose that. And I know that a lot of people, like Chris D'Elia was saying that on his podcast. He's like, why do I have to tell you to stay 6 feet away from me? You're putting me in a bad position to have to be like that. Just respect everyone. If you don't want to wear a mask, no, it's your life. Don't wear it. But if I'm full going to wear everything, don't judge me. Don't judge the people around you. Be kind, be empathetic. Oh, you know what? Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. Maybe she's ill. Be more, I think everybody was trained to be bullying everyone and tattletelling and, oh, if they're breaking quarantine, tell on them, call the cops, do this. So we turned against each other, and judgment is so high right now. Bullying is so high right now that we need to take a step back and have empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, again, this has impacted so many in many different ways. But for those of us who haven't lost a loved one, haven't lost a job, haven't had to deal with this illness, we've been gifted an opportunity to like reevaluate our lives and really see what was working for us back then, pre-quarantine, and what we want to change so that we don't have to be stuck in this hamster wheel moving forward. Because in any challenging time, you can always find the silver lining. There is always like a little light shining at the end of the tunnel, and you can make it what you want it to be, right? Maybe for some people, they want to get more involved in politics because they're noticing things. Maybe some people feel like, man, I really do want to be on the front lines if should anything like this occur again, and they want to take a job, along those lines. Whatever it is, maybe some people are like, I need to break up with this person. It's toxic, right? Being stuck with them. Now, marriages, unfortunately, yes, they're breaking apart. They're struggling. And, personally, I wish everybody could somehow work it out. And I know that's not reality, but, I think single people, look at the marriages that you've heard that are struggling or that are breaking apart and really evaluate, are you in a healthy relationship? What if we were stuck in a bunker? And that's honestly what I thought of when I met my husband. Is as silly as it was, and little did I know we would have to face a pandemic in our lifetime. But I thought, would this be a guy that, if like I had to be in a bunker, would I want to be in there with him? Because you're in close proximity, you're in close quarters. And it's so important that we just evaluate things and take a look at things and, is what we were doing working for us? And there's so, I think as we move out of this, evaluate the friendships. Evaluate even the job. I'm not saying do anything dumb or crazy. All I'm saying is just be aware and look, be curious, ask yourself questions. Why am I in this relationship? Is it going anywhere? Are these friends of mine? Are they helping me reach my life goals? Right? Because even aside from the pandemic, like if we're lucky, because the average lifespan is to live to 70 or in their 70s. Very few are going to live to their 80s and 90s. But even if suddenly something happened tomorrow, like, would you be proud of the life you've created to this point? Or are you going to look back with regret?
Right. And I think that's huge too, because like you were saying in relationships and stuff, excuse me, even in friendships, I think we just need to be a little bit selfless in this matter because, I found a lot of resentment in my situation where, I had to do what was right for me. I had to go to Arizona. I know that my mental health was not in a good place. I was starting to feel overwhelmed. It was like the apocalypse in LA, right? I just at the beginning, and I had to leave. I had to do what's best for me. And I was resented because of that. And I think that, yes, we are trying to rely on everybody and, we're calling our friends and FaceTiming and all this stuff, but you still need to respect and have boundaries, and the people around you need to respect those boundaries. Like we're all just trying to survive right now, and adding stress to people's lives when they're going through, I mean, we all felt what it feels like for the world to possibly end. And it's terrifying. And for some of us that are high risk, especially, you know, it was a trigger for me because when my brother passed away, I have a fear of death. I suffer from a lot of phobias. And so for me, I needed to go home. I needed to be with my family. The people, my friends were not going to be able, or the people in my life were not going to be able to comfort me the way that I knew I needed to be comfort. And I think that it shows you really who is going to support you in that decision or resent you. And unfortunately, I got the opposite, but I had a lot of people who supported my decision, and it was very hard to go through that. But like you said, we're rebranding our lives just like anyone else, just like businesses. You have to fire and hire appropriately. And right now is not the time to have toxic people or people who are going to make you feel bad for the decisions that you need to make. And I think everyone needs to hear this who's listening. Boundaries. Your priority is you. Your mental health is you. Because if tomorrow ends, or if that person passes away, which I learned the hard way, you only have yourself at the end of the day. And yes, marriages and relationships, there should be a very coexisting sense of life and everything, but you still, if it's toxic or resentment, you need to get away from it because it's just adding stress. And right now is not the time. Suicide is high. As we both know, we deal with this. I've had so many phone calls and suicide rates are high, you know, and people are getting desperate for help. And you can't help someone just like in an airplane. You got to put your mask on first, make sure you're breathing correctly, make sure you're getting oxygen in order to help the person next to you. Same thing applies with pandemic. You need to be mentally healthy so that the people around you, especially you're a wife, a mom. Can you imagine? You can't function that way.
No, cannot function that way. And I think that we have been gifted an opportunity to make the changes. And again, it's perspective. You know, my pastor recently preached an incredible message, and he was just talking about the death of if, because if is conditional, since there's always a then that follows. And people are often driven by those conditions. So when we think of having to do something, it's usually well, if I do or don't do this, then this or that will happen. So for example, the pressure of, for relationships, if I don't meet up with my friends, then they're going to get mad at me. Or if, you know, I don't go to this place, then whatever that consequence is. If we really pay attention to why we make the decisions that we make or choices that we make, then it would actually reveal to what our true motivators are in life. Right. And that could set people free, because you don't want to live a life. If you get to live to 70 years old, you don't want to live a life where everybody else was basically telling you what to do and you were a puppet the whole time because of the if and then. You want to be able to look back on your life and go, I'm so glad that I made this decision because it was the right one for me. Right. I'm so glad that I did this because look at how this turned out. I mean, I think that personally for me, I had to make some tough decisions in my early 20s. And when I look back, I realized that one of those led me to meeting my husband, right? And what if I hadn't made that decision? And the only reason I wouldn't have made that decision is because I was too fearful of what family would have said or what friends would have said. But here's the funny part is, so often we don't end up with those same friends 10, 15 years from now, because we should hopefully be evolving and hopefully moving in the same direction. And if you're not, then you might need to, reevaluate those relationships.
That's what I think for everyone listening. I think that that's one of the biggest things we're all going through is the people around you. You're starting to see different personalities, how they're responding to this. If they're, we're seeing a lot of, wait a second, they're doing this, it's disrespect, or just, there's a lot going on with friendships. Thankfully, my core group of girlfriends, we all are going in the same direction. We all respected quarantine. We all wanted to see each other eventually. We didn't want to infect one another. We really wanted to be respectful of each other because, I know that my best friend June's parents are older and her dad had a health issue. Why would I want to put them in that risk? It's the bigger picture. And I think that it's okay right now to reevaluate, fire and rehire. And it's unfortunate that it takes a pandemic for us to do this. But, it's funny that you say that, because one of my girlfriends, we were talking the other day, she called me and she said that. She goes, I have to be very empathetic with everyone. She's like, but right now during this time, she's worked for the same company for 10 years. She slaves at this job. Like, man, she works her butt off. And she goes, for the first time, I didn't feel the pressure of having to rush through work on a Friday to get my work done to go out because I didn't want my girlfriends to be upset with me or because I haven't gone out in weeks. She's like, this has been liberating for me. She's like, I am more efficient. I get my work done. I don't have pressures of invites. She's like, I don't feel, nobody's texting me to go out. So I get my stuff done. I can take a shower. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm even guilty of that. I've called her on Fridays being like, let's go, get out of the office. I need a glass of wine. I haven't seen you. Like, I'm even guilty of that, you know, but it's because we love them. But you're seeing that some people are actually, like for myself too, I have been the most productive. Clearly we started this web series, and I didn't have the pressures of going out. I didn't have the pressures of people calling me to hang out constantly. LA, guys, Monday through Sunday, there's something going on. Like, your phone doesn't stop, you know? And it's hard because you're like, God, I really want to go, but I shouldn't because I have shit to do. But it's one of those things that it's like you said, well, if I go, then, and there's a book that talks about that. I don't want to say it on here, but it's like, if it's not F yes, you fill in the blank here. If it's not F yes, then it's F no. And I started to use that in my life. I started to say, when I got an invite, is it an F yes? Like, F yes, I really want to go. Or was it a semi? It was semi, I wouldn't go. And I've been so much happier living my life this way. Because now, the one thing I think pandemic did for me, especially, and I don't know if our listeners feel this way, but I've gotten to know myself a lot better. I have boundaries the size of the wall. I have boundaries now. And if you don't fit into those boundaries, I don't have time, because my mental health has been the best it's ever been. I am so productive. I have a purpose every single day that I wake up. I don't have toxic people in my life telling me I'm horrible or my priorities are wrong, or because they don't understand my priorities. They don't want to. So I don't have any of that anymore. And I think it's liberating for some of us. And again, like you said, some are suffering a little bit more, and we need to respect everyone's bubble right now.
Yeah. But I mean, how liberating for your friend that, unfortunately it took the pandemic, but I know people, I know people that are thriving and they're small business owners. I also know people that are small business owners that are struggling and they're not sure what's going to happen or if their business is even going to still be around. But for whatever, like, all of us have different things that we've been gifted, things that we are able to handle or take control of, or we have power, right? This shouldn't leave us in a powerless position, but this should awaken us. It should awaken us to something bigger. Like you said, there's a bigger vision to things. Should awaken us to, is this the life that I want to be living in? Or have I been a hamster on the wheel, just going and people pleasing and doing things out of fear? Because that's not living in freedom. And that's why people are exhausted. They're angry, they're resentful, they're bitter, they're just so upset. And we can't control what happens through this pandemic, but we can control how we view things, how we take things in our own hands with our own lives and what we're able to control from that perspective and not. There's so many things that we are able to do. And I really want to encourage people that you don't get so lost in the news and in the fear and in the if or then of the future. Because, here's the thing is, honestly, how often do our fears come to realization? Like, we can panic about so much. And this happens often to people with anxiety and panic attacks. And this used to happen to me as well, where, you fear this unknown, but really, I don't know that if ever my worst scenario ever actually came true.
And then for some of us, our worst scenario did come true. And now you view things in a different way. Yes. Like, because my brother died in such a traumatic way from suicide, I view things in a different lens that most 99% of people who haven't been through this don't see it. And I have to constantly be empathetic, because now the way that I view things, my worst fear did happen. So getting cheated on is not my worst fear. Like, these things are not my worst fear anymore. They all disappeared. And I think with relationships too, and especially right now, we formulate a lot of fears before they happen. Like, I'm constantly checking myself, like, why are you worried about something that didn't happen yet? If you're in a relationship and that person's constantly getting mad at you for something you haven't done yet, toxic. It's the same thing that we do to ourselves. And I think it's important to recognize that, especially with everything happening. But like you said, I'm triggered differently. I see things differently. Your problems are not necessarily my problems. I don't find your problems because my problems my whole world fell apart. So I think we have to respect that about each other. We're all going through this differently. I'm triggered way differently than you are. I mean, I called you last night. I called, guys, to be transparent, I called her yesterday because I was being a crazy person. I was so anxious and I was losing my mind because I felt the weight of the world last night. Everybody's going out and you start to feel how much long I was going through a panic attack. I was like, how much longer do we have to do this? How am I going to have to avoid people for the whole rest of the year? Am I going to ever be able to sit? Because I'm high risk. So again, like Cynthia said, my mind is going differently than someone who can go to a restaurant and catch the flu. 3 days later, they're fine. Or a week later. For me, I don't know that I'd be that lucky, you know? So I'm not going to try to risk it because honestly, I run a business. I have my nonprofit. I'm starting a new job here soon. I mean, 2 months of my life in a hospital or will mess up everything that I've been doing the last 4 months. And I think that's what our audience needs to understand. Look at the bigger picture. What are you doing for yourself? Is it a risk that's going to change the course of your future? Because right now, your future matters. Everything we do matters. Every single thing from waking up to going to sleep. Are you getting up? And I know we talk about this a lot. Are you getting up and doing a purpose of the day? Are you staying in pajamas and watching TV? Are you TikToking all day long? What are you doing? Like, what do you feel about this?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it comes back to what's the bigger vision for your life. And I believe that this pandemic has really caused everyone to evaluate and be confronted and face your own stuff. For those that haven't done this before, it was new and it was scary and it was overwhelming, you know? But I think all of us, if we've lived long enough, we've all been faced with trauma and we've all endured these traumatic experiences. You know, you lost your brother. I had someone very close to me. Well, I've had people commit suicide, but someone super close to me attempt suicide. It didn't successfully go through. That changed the way I view things. That changed my perspective on suicide. That changed, and it opened my eyes to things. And like you said, you know, when you go through things, especially the things that you don't expect, but that's what trauma is. It's like a shock. And a trauma therapist actually told me once, trauma is anything that catches you off guard that you didn't see coming. So when we use that by definition, like in our lives, there's a lot of trauma that has occurred to us. At least I would say a good amount of us, right? And so this pandemic brought out those triggers or, you know, started those triggers in our lives. And so we started to panic or operate in certain ways that, you know, we didn't feel was necessarily who we actually are. And, you know, like I mentioned about yesterday, but here's the thing is we're also still human. So nobody's going to be able to be perfect in responding in everything. There shouldn't be, we should have that kindness for ourselves to just be gentle with ourselves. We're going to have bad days. We're going to wake up and we're going to be in a mood, you know, and that's okay. It's just, it's just, what do you want to do moving forward? Once you recognize something, okay, so don't stay there. And that's my constant encouragement for other people is don't hate yourself. Don't shame yourself. Don't allow others to use your past against you. But what are you going to do moving forward to better yourself? And again, as we emerge into this world again, so to say, you know, what do you want to do differently that wasn't working for you back then, pre-quarantine, if you're being honest? And take the little steps. And I would even say, get an accountability partner. It changes everything. You know, having someone there for you to be like, okay, hey, I'm here, check in with me. If you're feeling weak or vulnerable, like, don't do that thing that you want to overcome. You know, let me be the one to help you be accountable. And I've seen this do wonders in people's lives.
Right. And, you know, guys, for our listeners, I know if you've heard in our last episode and stuff, being accountable means just even doing the smallest things as a checklist every night that you do in the morning. Like for myself, and I know Cynthia does this too, we both, and if you're looking for tools and techniques, this is one of them. Like you need to stay accountable for yourself because everything you do matters in the sense of the habits you're creating right now, you're going to carry on when the world is able to go out. If there is some type of medicine that you can take, if you do catch COVID, you can get through it, right? Right now, I think that's the problem is that there's no form of treatment. So, you know, you do have to be extra careful right now, even if things are going up, but be accountable, you know, set up a checklist because taking a shower, and for those of you who suffer from depression or anxiety or are feeling these things, regardless if you've been through a trauma or not, when you make yourself accountable and you create a checklist and you're checking things off that list one by one, your mind is so preoccupied of doing those things, you're not going to feel depressed. You're not going to feel anxiety because, again, anxiety in our last episode is based on fear. your body kicks into anxious mode to help you get through the energy that you need to flee. So you're not going to be worried about that stuff when you're like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. I got to eat. Okay. You know, I got to do my workout at 2. I got to take a shower right after. You're so preoccupied doing this. Like, I hardly watch TV now. I am like so on my checklist. I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, man, I'm just now on like all the stuff I used to watch. Like, I used to binge watch Grey's Anatomy and I totally forget, you know? So I think it's important, like Cynthia said, accountability. Get yourself up and going again. Start now before things, because listeners, we have to say this a lot. And Cynthia and I, that we work with people who are depressed or suicidal or whatever, we have to constantly remember that normal that you were used to doesn't exist anymore. It's not going to be for a very long time till we can walk around like we used to and have the confidence and the trust to not fearing for our lives, fearing to get sick. So we're creating a new world with our new mind, logic. Cynthia mentioned throwing logic in there. You know, think about it in a bigger picture. Okay, what is this going to do? How, is this my decision to go to a restaurant, or is this their decision to go to a restaurant? Should I test the waters? Is the restaurant outside or is it indoors? Makes a huge difference to me. And you know, it's funny because I was reading an article, and it was like saying that there's going to be like a guinea pig, a sense of guinea pigs. And the people who are first going to go out to these restaurants, they're going to find out the hard way or the easy way, because you're sitting, and I want our viewers to listen to this, you're sitting down for long periods of time in the same place somebody else was at, and somebody else is in here. So, you know, I know that Cynthia and I talked about this, guys. It took 10 years to realize that you could use Botox anywhere below your forehead. When it first came out, I remember the doctors were so paranoid because they said it could go into your lungs and cause death and paralysis, all this stuff, right? We use it everywhere now. Like Botox is used for migraines, you know, sweating for people who have, I use it in my jaw because I have grinding issues. Like it took 10 years to understand that, you know? And so we cannot assume that everybody knows what they're talking about right now. You just need to do what's best for you. Who the heck knows what this virus is going to do? Who knows if we're going to have a second wave or we're going to be back locked into our house? In the meantime, what are you doing? Because it's not so bad for some of us if you're doing things every day and you're getting up and you're going, putting clothes on. You know, I know we do stuff all the time. Like you know, do you want to hit on that? Or like what you've been doing?
I mean, well, one of the big things is focus. You know,
Right.
For me, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm homeschooling my son, and my husband's, you know, working from home. My days don't feel any different because I was already a homeschooling mom. So for many who were thrust into this new homeschooling role, yeah, it was a shock for them. For me, I felt kind of bad when they'd ask me, how are things going? I'm like, the same. Like, it's just day in and day out. But here's the thing is, it's also because of what I was focused on, you know? And so I know that not everybody's married and with kids. And so those that are feel like they don't even have a minute by themselves, you know, and it's tough. But for those that aren't, I would say, again, what are you focusing on? If you know, don't just leave yourself to do nothing. Now, by that, I don't mean fill up your schedule and just try to do everything and never, you know, feel anything. You don't want to avoid your feelings. You don't want to avoid stuff, but you don't want to stay in those feelings too long, because then, right, then they become betrayers and you will become your own worst enemy. So read a book, you know, go for a walk if you're able to, if you're not in a crowded, you know, neighborhood.
Everybody has a front door, you guys. Go outside and get some air. I think it's really important. Open your front door. Right. Like stick your head out your front door. I don't care. Everybody has one.
Jumping jacks, something.
Sun, like vitamin D. I mean, I think that nutrition is a big thing. You know, are you eating out of a box 24/7? Or are you getting fresh vegetables, I know we have, like, I'm scared death to go to the grocery store. Nope. But there's companies that deliver recipes, you know, it's probably cheaper than grocery stores right now. There's high prices because there's a high demand. Order one of those kits that comes that you learn how to cook, you know, for yourself for the week. And it's like $40 or 30, whatever. There's so many options here. And I think that either you're lazy and you hit this moment of like, you just don't want to do anything in depression or whatever. Not saying you're lazy if you're depressed, no, different things, but make an effort, right? Make an effort for a change.
Yeah. I mean, focus is everything. Our attitude is everything. Our bigger vision is everything, because that's what drives us. That's what gets us up in the morning and motivates us. Our relationships really help form us, because you become like the people you surround yourself with, you know, and, you know, again, what are you filling your days with? If you work from home, like just try to get up, get dressed, put on makeup or take a shower, brush your teeth, all the basics that we may think, well, what does it matter? No one's around me, but you matter and you're worth the investment to do that for yourself. And you are going to feel so much better about yourself. And so we shouldn't give up on that. But I just want to encourage also everyone that history always repeats itself. This isn't the first time we've ever had a pandemic. And it probably won't be the last for as long as this world continues. And, there's a very intense political climate right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. So let's just be people that get educated. We use a lot more wisdom on what we're reading. Again, the media is also controlled by very, very few big, corporations, I'll say. So there's specific messages that go out and whatnot. And again, we don't have to live in a fearful state. Just know that what's happening is not the first time it's ever happened before, and it probably won't be the last. So how can we make this world a better place, especially for those that follow after us? Let's not jump on a bandwagon because it sounds great, or a specific influencer or a celebrity is leading it. Let's actually do the work. Let's do the research. Let's read. Let's be educated. And one of my favorite things is that my parents instilled in me, for example, education is something that can never be taken from you, right? Because that's just something you have. Invest in the things that cannot be taken from you. Because if you put all your value, all your worth in the stuff that can be easily removed, or if it were caught in a fire, then what do you do after that happens?
I always think of this example, in scary movies, there's the person that dies always first, and then there's the people who learned how to survive. And this is one of those movies. We're living in the Twilight Zone right now. Like, this is crazy. And you need to be, which one are you? Are you the person who goes out and has no idea where to go in this movie? They run to the wrong field, or they run right into the hands of the killer? Or are you the person that knows, okay, that is alert, aware, they're educated, they know how to do things, especially right now. Social media is full of people who are just spending their time doing videos. I'm not hating on you. Go TikTok, whatever. But if Instagram shut down tomorrow, what are you going to do? Because we're learning right now that it is extremely possible for this to happen. Yeah. Guys, our whole world just shut down, completely paused. And how are you spending it? Are you playing video games all day long? Are you what are you doing? Because as we noticed, if you're going into a grocery store, 90% of stuff comes from China. They're not restocking because now Nike, Puma, all these people are like, well, our factories are all there. This can happen with, poor influencers are seeing this. Brands are not investing in influencers anymore. They don't have products. They're not receiving products. They don't have this luxury anymore to spend money like they used to. They had to get rid of employees. People, you need to understand everything's possible right now. Everything. Social media shuts down tomorrow. You better have plan B, C, D, E, F, G. We got to go back to the basics with everything. I think it's extremely important how you spend your time right now. There's two types of people who are going to come out of this: the new entrepreneurs and people who are the people who survive at the end and the people who died in the middle. And I'm not saying you're going to die or anything. I'm just saying there's a difference, right?
I mean, it's just like the Three Little Pigs. Are you going to build your house with straw, with sand, or with brick? Right? And I think that if you build right, then it's going to withstand the strong storms. And so that's, again, it comes back to evaluating our lives and seeing, okay, what doesn't work? And then also paying attention. I think for me personally, I always learned I don't have to make all the mistakes that other people make. I should learn from them so I don't do them, because I'm going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. We're human. But pay attention to those things around you and to those people and the businesses, and then learn from it so that you can do better, live better, and not worry if this should happen again in the future.
Because we don't know. That's the biggest question. We don't know if we're going to have to get back into quarantine because we messed up, or we have a second, wave of this. But I think it's also really important for everyone to understand, guys, we worked so hard for anti-bullying. We worked so hard. We were just becoming this world and generation of anti-bullying and mental health being a thing and coming together. And all of a sudden we were pulled apart by media. We were pulled apart by an unfair reason or way, and be empathetic. Remember that the community that we were before this happened. I think we need to hold on to that. Forget everything else, but hold on to how you view people, what happened to me at Rite Aid. You need to be empathetic right now. Understand the needs of everyone else. Don't put yours first. Yeah, you might miss that person and you want them to be with you, but if they had to take measures for themselves, yeah, you want to go to a party with them, or you want to, anything goes here. But at the same time, stop bullying, stop being aggressive with each other, stop tattling on each other, support one another, be kind to each other. Don't feel the pressure. Like yesterday was wild for me. Like poor Cynthia was just like, you sound nuts, because my priorities shifted, and the way that the pressures of society laid heavy on me here in LA, because we're feeling the pressure of other states opening. So I think this is huge. We need to just be empathetic, and like Cynthia said, just because things are happening around you doesn't mean you have to follow suit. Do what's best for you, because everybody has a different story, but we're suffering from the same thing.
Absolutely.
So, well, you guys, I hope this has helped you. Again, remember, be kind to one another, make your checklist, get a purpose in life. Listen to everything that Cynthia said. She's right. We have to educate yourself. Do your own homework. Stop reposting things you have no idea what it really is. Read the whole article. I think ask around if you know a nurse, or if someone knows a nurse, ask the people in the front line, what the heck is going on? Get the true story. But I think, again, making sure we're developing really good habits. Do you have anything that you want to add before we go?
Just, again, like what you said, be kind to one another, be kind to ourselves. And really, I'm rooting for everyone to really evaluate their lives and how far they've come, to look around. Are you surrounded by the people you want to be surrounded by? Do the work within you so that you can not feel like you're going to be controlled should another pandemic occur in the future. Really be able to withstand. I think the key is resiliency, and that strength, that no matter what happens in life, that you're going to get through it, right? And fearless people, it's not because they don't fear. It's just that they don't move because of fear. They move in spite of it, right? And so that's where I hope that everyone just becomes more resilient. And we're coming out of this, right? There's a lot of reports, and they're mixed, conflicting reports. So some say that this could have been way worse, and it's not. Some say that it's, whatever it is, the point is that if you're alive and you made it through, that's a victory. And so let's focus on the good. Let's keep on moving forward. And again, let's just be more educated, use wisdom, and create a life that you really want to live, because you only get one shot anyways.
Yeah. And I'm really tired of people saying, oh, we're all going to get it anyways, so go risk it. No, listen, I haven't had it, you haven't had it. If you don't have to have it, don't do it. Don't worry about everyone else or what the media is telling you about, well, everyone's going to get it anyways. I don't care. If I don't have to be sick, bigger picture here, you don't have to waste more time of your life being sick and feeling horrible. Don't do it. Don't listen to the media. Cynthia, thank you so much for jumping on. I'm so excited to have you. It was great. Again, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to A New World in Mind. Next week, we'll have another special guest. So we will see you soon.